Good morning, everybody. If you celebrate it, happy Chinese New Year. I hope you're having a good one, having lots of dumplings today. I'm going to be doing a topic which is probably not the happiest start to the new year, but I think it's an important one. We're going to be looking at unemployment. We're going to be looking at artificial intelligence and how it has an impact on our jobs, on unemployment, on the economy, and on the future of work. The reason I wanted to cover this today is that in the UK, where I'm based, we just got new statistics from the Office of National Statistics about the unemployment figures. And UK unemployment has hit a 5-year high as wage growth slows. Unemployment is now as high as it was during COVID. We have a similar level of unemployment as we did during those very strange couple of years. Unemployment has hit 5.2% in the UK, which is 1 in 20 people of working age. That's a huge number of people. There are some places, I think it was Bradford, where amongst young people, unemployment is up to 20% within the young people looking for their first job. So that's 1 in 5 people. That is a massive problem. So Office of National Statistics have said the figures reflect weak hiring activity and that more people are out of work and now looking for jobs. Wage growth across the country slowed in the same period. For people aged 18 to 24, the rate of unemployment has hit 14%. So the fact that it's around 20% in Bradford is a lot, but it's not that much higher than the 14% unemployment amongst ages 18 to 24. Now, this is UK data. This is what's come out today. This is not just a UK issue. This is happening all over the world. Unemployment is soaring in a lot of the Western world. I see Kemi Badenoch here saying that Labour is killing jobs, killing growth and killing hope. I want to point out that the Tories were in power for 13 years before Labour came in. So a lot of this is going to have to be put on their plate. I'm not going to be political about this. They're all as bad as each other as far as I'm concerned. But this is not just a Labour policy issue. This is much wider. This is a global issue. And we need to look back to the Tories and their policies over the last decade or so. So she's looking smug saying that this is Labour's fault. It is not. It's a larger issue that has been going on for a longer time. So what I want to talk about is the role of artificial intelligence in job loss, and more importantly, the role of artificial intelligence in what comes next and how we recover from this, because I think that's where AI comes into play. I'm going to do a little presentation. Kingstonian says, I feel very protective of you the other day when the guy went after you for your R's. Your voice is great. Thank you. There was someone on Instagram, I forget where it was. I forget what he said. He said something like, say R. I can't pronounce my R's very well, which is unfortunate because my prompt engineering framework is the Risen framework with an R, which until I said it out loud, I thought it was a great idea. And then as soon as I had to say it, it's like, shit. So I put out a video saying, hey, it's actually not cool coming after people for this kind of stuff they can't really help. For me, I don't particularly care. I get hundreds of people saying this thing. I also get thousands of people saying lovely things, so it balances out. My main problem with that was for new content creators, for new people who want to speak, whether it's on stage, on social media, having people like that who said, oh, your face is funny, or you sound weird, or I don't like your hair, it's counterproductive and it stops voices from being heard. That's why I put out that video, giving him a slap. Let's hop in and look at job loss. I've put together a quick presentation called The Irreversible Shift. And we're going to be talking about how artificial intelligence is having an impact on jobs. First things first, the economy is soft for a number of reasons. We had a global pandemic, we had overhiring, especially in the tech industry, and then we are starting to see companies shed workforces. So there's a lot of things going on here, a lot of macroeconomic topics. We have tariffs, we have interest rates, we have China, we have many things going on here. But overall, the economy is very soft right now. We are in recession, teetering on the edge of depression. Obviously, there are proper economic definitions for these things, but it's not great right now. If you go outside in most countries, there's a feeling of desperation. I do not feel that when I go to China, so you're doing pretty well over there. But in Europe and in America, there's a feeling that things aren't going as well as it should be. So we can all agree on that. What we don't have to agree on is the cause of that. What I want to talk about is how AI is playing a role here. It's not causing all of this, but it is also not totally disengaged from it. Interestingly, when I was working with my AI this morning and trying to come up with a slide deck, trying to work through the arguments, the AI kept saying, no, actually, it's not really the AI's fault. There seems to be a hard-coded pushback from ChatGPT and from Claude saying that AI is not really responsible for this. This is conspiracy theory, but the AI companies are in this weird place where they want to say that AI is incredibly productive, it can do a whole load of work, but don't worry too much. We're not a big baddie, you don't need to worry about us. So they're in this bizarre tension right now. Someone like Dario Amodei, the head of Anthropic, he is a lot more honest about it. He's said within a year or two, 50% of white collar jobs are gone, totally gone. I think that is probably over egging it, and I'm going to be talking about why during this presentation, but at least he is being honest about the effect he thinks it's going to have. So AI, I don't think we can prove AI is the primary driver of what's happening in the economy right now. I think the roots of that are much further back. They're larger macroeconomic, due with interest rates, cycles, the amount of national debt we have, and the pandemic. So there are much bigger forces at play here. However, AI is going to have impact on how we come out of this. AI is going to have an impact on changing the rules moving forward. I want to talk about the fact that AI is not yet visible in our unemployment data, or at least we can't separate it from the rest of the unemployment reasons, but it's changing the logic of hiring. With the BBC here, we see that the problem is there is weak hiring activity. Companies are just not hiring people right now. The number of unemployed people per vacancy has increased, reaching a new post-pandemic high. Redundancies are also trending upwards. Private sector wage growth continues to slow and is at its lowest rate in 5 years. Public sector growth has also slowed in the latest period, but remains elevated. People are looking for jobs, but companies are not hiring. That's what I want to look at, because I think AI has a massive role in that area. Certain things, when we go into a recession, when we go into a depression, when we just have a soft period, that are cyclical. Things like demand, interest rates, policy shifts from governments, these things come and go. We have periods of prosperity and periods of less prosperity. Whether it's a recession or a depression, this happens. We have cycles. We've always had cycles. However, what I think is happening is we have bigger structural changes. Structural changes, unlike cyclical changes, are permanent. Cyclical changes, by their very nature, will come in and they'll go out. They're always reversing. Structural changes do not reverse. So I think we are seeing automation capabilities, productivity multipliers, the ability for one person to do the job of 5 to 10 people, full task substitution, where an AI is taking over a task entirely and you no longer need a human for that, and organizations changing the way they are structured, needing less people to do more, or being built from the ground up with AI in mind. We're going to be seeing the ramifications of that over the next few years. Interest rates will change, the macroeconomic factors are all going to reverse, and maybe we'll come out of recession, but the structural changes are still going to be in place. AI is not going away. People say, oh, it's a bubble, and when the bubble pops, AI is going to go away. No. AI might be a financial bubble. Yes, there's going to be stupid investment, spending huge billions of dollars on things that don't need that much investment and aren't going to see an ROI. Financial bubble does not mean a technological bubble, though. So even when the financial bubble pops, which is going to cause even more chaos, that does not mean generative AI or artificial intelligence goes away. In the same way that we saw the internet rise in the late 1990s, we had an internet boom, stupid money being spent on anything internet related. That came crashing down in about 2000, 2001, and then the internet remained. In fact, the internet became more and more important. We'll probably see that kind of dynamic. So AI is not going away. Generative AI is here to stay. Remember that over 1 billion people now use ChatGPT. That is not because it's a fad. That's because it's genuinely useful for them on a day-to-day basis. So the cycles will reverse. Interest rates will change. Inflation will change. The macroeconomic factors will shift around. They will cycle. We'll have good times. That's fine. The structural, technological baseline will shift because AI is not going away. Sorry to the people who don't like it, but that is the reality. So previously, you'd have demand in your business and you would deploy labor and you would deploy capital to provide for that demand. Now we have AI capability in the mix, so we don't necessarily need as much labor. It does not mean that we are going to be firing staff. So Doris in accounts is not necessarily going to lose her entire job. Mark over in logistics is not going to lose his entire job. What's going to happen though is we might not need to hire as many people. And that's what we are starting to see here. Weak hiring activity. If we don't need as many people to do the same job, to provide the same amount to fulfill that demand, then we don't need to hire as many people. So we'll probably see a more insidious reduction in hiring rather than demolishing of jobs. One person won't necessarily be fired because of AI. We just won't create new positions, which has the same effect down the line. It's just less dramatic. We don't see people actually collecting their pink slips, being sent home because of AI. Instead, we just don't see new people coming in. That's a harder thing to spot that we won't necessarily notice, and we won't necessarily attribute it to artificial intelligence in the same way that is happening right now. So what we're seeing here is this 18 to 24, the unemployment rate has hit 14%. That may or may not be artificial intelligence, but I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that because the entry-level jobs will not need new hires. Much more insidious, much less dramatic than AI took my job. Instead, it's AI has decreased the number of new positions. I know it's less sexy, less of a headline, but I think this is more likely going to be what happens. So previously, if you needed to increase the output of your business, if you needed to supply more in order to fulfill demand, you could hire more or you could deploy more capital. Instead, if we need more output, we can ask ourselves, can we do this with AI? Increasingly, the answer to that question is, yeah, we can. That was not the case 2 years ago when it was still relatively a toy. The answer to the question, can we do this with AI, a couple of years ago was, no, not really. It's dangerous. Whereas the question increasingly now is, can we do that with AI? Yeah, absolutely, we can do it with AI. I think people are starting to realize that. On a very personal, anecdotal level, I sit down with my AI every day and I ask it, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I have no idea how to do it. These are the systems I'm using. Is there a way for us to connect this up? Is there a way for us to do this using artificial intelligence? Here's my workflow. What parts of it can we automate? And it will help me work that out. Now, again, that's anecdotal. That is one person, and I'm more at the forefront of this technology than some people, but that is going to filter down to everybody and to businesses as well. They'll be able to automate and work out what they can do with AI, hire less as a result. So that is the new question when we're hiring. Do we need to hire, or can we give an AI to an existing employee and increase their productivity so we don't need to hire for the new position? Or can we even use an AI to take care of those tasks? Remember, a job is a bundle of tasks. Unless you're working in a production line like Charlie Chaplin in modern times, you're not just doing one thing again and again. You are doing 5 or 6 different things. Even if not all of those things can be automated using artificial intelligence, chances are a couple of those things can. So even something like a plumber, people use plumbing as an example of what you can do to be totally safe from AI. Even with a plumber, some of the work is ordering parts. Some of it is writing up quotes and invoices, chasing payment, etc. These are kind of tasks that AI can be used in. Yeah, maybe AI can't get under the sink and actually tighten up some kind of bolt under the sink. It can't do that yet because of robotics, but it can help with other parts of the task, which means that single plumber can be more productive, and ergo we need less plumbers as long as demand does not increase. We'll talk about that in a bit. So this becomes the new decision. When we are hiring, there's a new marginal decision about whether we hire or we automate or we provide existing employees with help using artificial intelligence. All of this means we don't necessarily need to hire somebody. And labor is a massive cost when it comes to running a business. Absolutely massive. Previously, automation and deployment of capital tended to be for physical output. You could build machineries, you can build production lines in your factories for building cars. It could do one physical task really well. That is changing. AI can help with pretty much any cognitive task. It's not the blue-collar workers who are necessarily going to be in trouble. It's actually the white-collar workers who are going to be in trouble first. Dario Amodei says 50% of the tasks that a white-collar worker can do, they will be removed in the next couple of years. Does that mean we need 50% less white-collar workers? Not necessarily, but it means we can certainly stop hiring as many. We soften up the hiring, as we already see. We end up with a lot of young people at entry level who are just not getting jobs. We're already seeing that is going to get worse and worse. So what happens is right now, most organizations are pyramidal. They're a pyramid. So at the bottom, you generally have the juniors. They're going to be the analysts in a finance company. They're going to be the clerks in a law company. They're going to be the people who do the grunt work. They're the people who are doing the kind of boring everyday work that has to be done. So it could be discovery work, it could be doing checks on accounts, it could be account management, it could be very basic stuff at the bottom. They do that basic grunt work because it allows them to cut their teeth. It's a training ground. And you would do that for a couple of years until you have enough ability and enough knowledge of the grunt work to move up into a higher level where you are now managing a team of people who are doing that everyday work. So you go into management, and then potentially you go into become a senior, you can become a leader. So you start with the basic work itself, then it goes to review, and then it goes to strategy. If you look at this pyramid here, this is how most organizations work. Some of them are flatter, more horizontal, but generally we have this kind of structure in place, and you have more people at the bottom than you have at the top. That's how it's been for hundreds of years. However, this bottom layer here, this is also what AI is really good at. Not at taking the jobs again, but at doing the tasks that these jobs do. Let's take legal. In legal, a lot of the grunt work is going to be discovery. It's going to be going through documentation, going through all of the case notes, going through a huge amount of information pertaining to whatever the work is about, and finding patterns, compiling it, making notes, and then presenting all of that to the next level up. Do you know what AI is really good at? All of that. You can give it a corpus of information, whether it's case notes, whether it's relevant law, and it can go through that quickly and come out with notes and information for the next level up much faster than a team of clerks. This means that we start to get this kind of hollowing out. We get this complicated situation where the bottom of the pyramid starts to shrink. We don't need as many people at the bottom. We're already seeing hiring freezes in consultancy. The legal firm is being obstinate and they're saying, no, it can't do it, but they're in for a shock. Accountancy as well. We're seeing hiring freezes at the bottom. They're not specifically saying, oh, this is because of artificial intelligence, but increasingly AI can be used at these bottom levels. So these tasks at the bottom will no longer be done by as many humans. You'll hire 10 humans instead of 100 humans. And those 10 humans who have come in are also having their learning robbed from them because they're using the artificial intelligence to do the work of 100 people, and they're not going through the process of cutting their teeth, of doing the grunt work. Their learning is thinner as they start to progress up the hierarchy. We end up going from a very solid pyramid shape, extremely solid, very stable, this is why I've been using it for years, to suddenly something where the base starts to collapse, looking a little bit like Japan's population graph. You'll probably recognize the shape. Something like this, where the bottom starts to hollow out. Over time, if you push this forward a few years, you're going to end up with an inverted pyramid with more people at the top. In this case, it's age. So you're going to have more older people and less younger people. You're going to end up with something very similar inside of organizations where you have a lot of people pushing up towards the leadership, pushing up towards senior, but very few people doing the work at the bottom. That is not a stable shape. You're going to have to start trimming people off the top because you are paying them, but then overseeing work that doesn't exist. And we'll see it go from here, a upside down pyramid, and then slowly collapse in on itself. At the same time, artificial intelligence will be working its way up the pyramid. That will speed up collapse. We're already seeing AI move on to level management and review. Previously, it was doing the grunt work. We now have the ability to set up an orchestration of agents where you have multiple agents, 100 agents, all different, doing different tasks. Think of that like a team of 100 people. You have agents over the top who are like orchestrators. They are checking on the work underneath. That sounds like a team structure. It sounds like these two levels of the pyramid. So all of this means entry-level jobs collapse. I'm coming back to this. Right now, 18 to 24, the rate of unemployment in the UK is 14%. That's a lot of people, 14%. And it's dudes like this guy, who's this, Alex Hook, who graduated with a social sciences degree in July. Oh, he's just got a job, apparently. Yeah, so we have to remember it is people, real people. This 14% doesn't mean anything until you realize that it is actual people, young people who are out of their jobs. The patterns that I'm talking about with artificial intelligence will exacerbate that, and one day might make 14% look like a very high level. You might be sitting at home thinking, well, I'm not seeing that. AI is rubbish in my job. Whenever I talk to lawyers, this is what they always say. They're like, oh, can't do this, it can't do that. It's because they're relatively conservative and they haven't tried it out. But more reasonably, there's something called a jagged frontier in artificial intelligence. It is very good at some jobs, very bad at other jobs. So that's why it's very important to pay attention to what is happening in coding and programming, because all of the AI labs, the frontier labs, are focusing all of their time and money on making their AIs better at coding. Why? A couple of reasons. One, they are nerds, and this is the domain that they know, and therefore it's easy for them to improve in this domain. If they want to improve in accountancy, in law, in medical, then they have to go and talk to those people, get them in, and start to build AIs with those people who have that domain knowledge. They're not doing that. Instead, they are insular, and they're happy to work on engineering problems for engineers. So that's one thing. Two, they don't have to. So if they crack the ability for AI to code, they get very good at it. If they crack that, then AI can start to self-improve. Claude Code was used to build Claude Cowork a couple of weeks ago, and Codex 5.3, which is the new coding model from ChatGPT, they used the early builds of Codex 5.3 to build the later builds of 5.3. So they used itself to build itself. And we're going to see more and more of that. So if you focus on building a tool that can improve the tool, then you can accelerate the capability of the artificial intelligence. They're aiming at AGI, artificial general intelligence. And then once it is ready, once it is really good, you can turn it on the other industries and it becomes a trivial problem to solve. So you build this artificial intelligence and then you're like, okay, this week we're going to solve law. Next week we'll do medicine, but this week we're going to do law. And then you set your amazing AI, your AGI, whatever it is at that point, on law. You solve it and you move on to the next industry. So that's why at the moment we're seeing a lot of advancements happening in coding, software development and engineering. And that's why it's also worth paying attention to. So if you work in an industry where AI is not that good right now, that's because they're not focused there. Pay attention to what they're doing in coding and programming, even if you don't really understand it, because that is the forefront of the development. Once they're done, it won't take that long. Once they're done, they can turn whatever they've built, this self-improving tool, on your industry. Right now we have a jagged frontier and AI is good at some things and not so good at other things. That will no longer be the case once we have a good enough AI to basically solve other industries. And we're probably talking about a couple of years maximum for that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is with this jagged frontier. So right now, like, coding jobs are drying up. Less coders are being hired because AI can be used right now for coding jobs. The most fragile workers are people on Upwork.com, Fiverr. Those sites have been decimated by artificial intelligence, but this will roll up to the more stable jobs as well. Even if you are in a safer industry, even if you're in a safer job, there are going to be second order or third order consequences, which means it's going to hit you. So let's say you are a physiotherapist or a massage therapist. You might be thinking, AI's got nothing to do with me because what I do is very physical. It's very non-algorithmic. I'll talk about these types of jobs in a moment, but AI cannot do what I do. It cannot help me with my work. So I'm safe. You have to remember that your clients work in industries that are going to be affected by artificial intelligence. And if your clients lose their jobs, if we see unemployment rates like 14%, nationally is 5.2%, there is suddenly less money to spend, less discretionary money to spend on physical therapy, getting a massage, whatever it is that you provide. Remember, this affects every single industry. It might not hit you directly, but if everyone else has no money, they don't have money to spend on whatever it is that you're selling. It's going to take a little while, a couple of years maybe, but it will filter down and it will hurt your business. It will hurt your job. There are exposure points. You have to think a few steps ahead and realize that, oh shit, I'm not actually that safe. Now, I'm saying all of this not to scare people, but instead to point us in the direction of what we can actually do about this. Let's have a look. There are three types of jobs, or three types of roles that are resilient at the moment. So I've got one called unstructured physical reality. It's a very fancy way of saying it, but basically nursing. Nursing is an amazing example of this. When you are a nurse, you will go to work every day. You don't necessarily know what's going to get thrown at you. You might have to pin someone to a bed for good reasons. You might need to chase somebody who's running away from the hospital. Very different things you have to do on a day-to-day basis. It's an unstructured physical reality. It requires your physical presence, and it's not structured like a production line is, for example. In a production line, it's the same job being done every single day, so that can be done by robots. In something more unstructured, like nursing, dog grooming is another example, because they all come in different shapes and sizes and temperaments. You, as a human, have more flexibility than the AI to deal with the unstructured physical reality. This is not fully immune because as robotics get better and better, they will push into this area. However, robots are still lagging behind generative artificial intelligence, which means you have some time. We don't know how much, but robots need to become general purpose and they need to become cost effective before these jobs are going to be at risk. Second one here is high empathy and trust. Ones that require, like nursing, the ability to communicate with people, the ability to have relationships and form bonds with people in order to get the work done. And this is why I love nursing as an example here, because you need to be able to talk to people. You need to be able to help somebody calm down before a procedure, for example. You need to be able to sit and talk with someone who is maybe a family member who is worrying about their sick child. A robot is not able to do that yet. That is still a very human skill. So high empathy and trust is great. And then anything that has a legal or fiduciary liability. This is why some roles like law and accountancy, some professions in particular, are still going to be safe, because we cannot, as of yet, hold an AI legally responsible. We need to hold someone legally responsible so that we can sue them. That is the reason. So that's why often we hire a solicitor. That's why we hire a lawyer, because we want to, as a business person, as an individual, we want to shift some of the legal responsibility on to a lawyer or onto an accountant. That's basically what we are buying when we buy their services. So as long as AIs cannot be held legally responsible, which they cannot as of yet, certain roles are going to be safe because of this. So legal and fiduciary liability, being able to hold that for your clients puts you in a really good and safe position right now. These are three of the big ones: physical and unstructured physical, high empathy and trust, and legal and fiduciary liability. If you're in one of these roles, you're probably in a good place. Nursing is probably the best example here that kind of falls into all of these three buckets. On the flip side, if you have a role, a job that is primarily sitting in front of a computer, you're probably boned. If you spend 8 hours a day doing spreadsheets, writing reports, reading information, synthesizing it, and literally if you're in front of a computer, that job is done. Those tasks will be replaced. Anything that requires repetitive cognition, pattern-based work, standardized reviews, data entry, etc., that will be gone. These are fancy ways to say if you're sitting in front of a computer, that task will no longer be around. It's not just about numbers, it's not just about words, this could include graphic design. Anything that can be done on a computer will eventually be automated by artificial intelligence. So these are non-physical tasks. They don't require high empathy and trust. Maybe you sit at your computer for 8 hours a day and you don't talk to anyone. That is more at risk. It might not have legal or fiduciary liability. You are just working with the computer and producing things. The white collar jobs that are at risk, and they will not survive moving forward. So what do you do about all of this? My answer is to start something yourself. Do not quit your job. Hang on to your job for as long as possible. Understand that your job may not exist. Understand that your industry might not exist and your company might go under. As long as you are in a 9-to-5, you are not necessarily in the position to control the fate of your role, because your company might go under, your industry might cease to exist. So you don't have control of that situation. Don't quit your job though. Continue to make money. What you do on the side though is you get ready for what's coming. It's going to take a couple of years, but you get ready and you build secondary, tertiary sources of income. You start something on the side, a side hustle, but basically a way to make money. You could be freelancing, you could be a contractor, you could be setting up a business. Generally, we need to have something that we control. The reason for this is we need optionality. We need diversification. If you have one source of income, that is inherently more risky than having multiple sources of income. So you need to get other sources of income in play. I have about 6 or 7 for the reason that I don't know which of them are going to be extant. I don't know which ones I'll still be able to rely on come a couple of years from now. For example, I have this newsletter. The newsletter makes money, it generates revenue. Awesome. People have said, why are you writing a newsletter? Because people can just get that information from AI. True. They probably can. At the moment, I'm adding my spin, my expertise. So there's a little bit of safety there, but eventually that could potentially be fully automated by artificial intelligence. So that's why I'm not reliant on just a newsletter. I have 6 or 7 different types of revenue streams because I do not know what is coming. I do not know which of these revenue streams will continue or which will dry up because they're no longer needed because ChatGPT releases some kind of tool and it's, oh, that does everything that I do, but better. So you need to have multiple options going. What I do recommend is starting to build. So we have vibe coding tools available to us. And the first thing that you do is you leverage whatever expertise, whatever information, whatever processes and workflows you do in your current business, you leverage them into some kind of tool that you're going to sell using artificial intelligence. So instead of allowing AI to destroy that work, you're actually going to package up your work, get it into some kind of AI tool. You're basically putting yourself out of a job, but you're doing it first before anyone else does it to you. I know it sounds cynical, but there's an opportunity right now to, over the next year or so, basically put yourself out of the job. But by doing so, you are helping thousands of other companies as well. It sounds cynical, and it is, but you need to take personal control of what you're doing. The fact that you're watching this right now means that you are in the position to do, whereas lots of other people are not. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing which makes really good money right now is you go and teach companies how to use artificial intelligence. I make about £2,000 per hour going and giving workshops to businesses. You go in and you talk to them about AI. If you're watching on social media or you're watching right now, way more than most people about artificial intelligence. And all you're going to do is you're going to package that up with your domain expertise and how you use AI in your particular job, in your particular role, and you're going to go out to other people and teach them how to do it. I've put together a free course on that. If you go to aiwithkyle.com/courses, there's the AI workshop masterclass. There's a bunch of lessons in here and some tools and a video as well. So that's another way you can do it. There are many different ways to make money. I don't know what the best one is for you. It depends on your background, your skills, what you're good at. But you need to have multiple sources of income so that you have optionalities, the ability to flex to whatever's going to be coming. That is my personal recommendation to you. My recommendation is not to try and find a safe job because we don't know what they're going to be and we don't know if there will be any, but instead to set up multiple sources of income so that if one gets knocked out, your job, for example, you have other things that you can rely on and use to support your family and do well moving into the future. We cannot sit and wait for this to get worse. We might be looking a year from now at this figure of 5.2% unemployment in the UK and think, remember when it was only 5%? Remember that as we climb up to 20%, 30%, we might look back on this fondly and think those were the days. So you can't sit idly by. You need to get active on this one right now because it's not going to get better for this reason. The cycles will change, the interest rates will change, the inflation rate will change, the political situation over the world will change. Doesn't matter because the technological baseline has shifted and that's not going away. So yes, things will cycle. They'll always cycle, but AI is not going to go away. And that has changed the hiring decision, empty out the bottom of companies, empty out the bottom of industries and start to cause collapse across the board. So don't wait for it. Sorry if I'm being harsh, but I just want people to wake up to this reality. If you do want advice, if you do want help with this, come over to aiwithkyle.com. There's a whole bunch of free stuff here. There's a 5-day readiness challenge. There's about 100 playbooks in this catalog, which are all about how to start businesses. You can just access these and just open them up. There's a bunch of courses. There's one about how to start a business using artificial intelligence, one about how to start training businesses about AI and make good money. That's all available here on aiwithkyle.com. You can sign up or you can access it free, totally up to you. And there's also a community. We're about 15,000 strong at the moment, which is exciting, but that's all available for free just with an email on the page, or just come along and have a look. You don't need to sign up for anything. Totally up to you. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm going to switch now to answering some questions. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Thank you. I'm going to pop over and have some water. What's going on? Are we in trouble? Yeah. Do you give co-work access to medical and other sensitive data? I don't personally, but I wouldn't be that adverse to it. Not client data, because that's not mine to lose. For my data, yes. The only thing I am wary about is giving API keys. I never put an API key into a large language model. I use an environment file instead. But for things like medical, I'm one of these people who data security is nice, but I'm not that fussed. I know it sounds defeatist, but the companies know so much about us already. Google knows so much about us already that it's too late. That said, if I lived in America, and my medical records could impact my insurance costs, that would change things entirely. So in the UK, we pay taxes. We have healthcare that we don't have to pay for at the point of service. I'm less worried about that. If I was in America, I would guard my medical records because otherwise that's going to get out to the insurance company. It still takes years to implement AI in regulated industries and government. Yes, it does. Yep. So that's what I talked about briefly. So careers where there's legal and fiduciary liability. So anything that has regulation, anything that has unions too, will be able to push back. So there are resistances. What I would say with all of those things is that what they are doing is stemming the tide. They're pushing it back. But 50 years from now, 20 years from now, it won't matter. So yes, they'll be able to delay it by 5, 10, maybe 20 years. But over time, the economics of the situation just won't make sense. It's slowing it down, but it's not going to reverse it. And the EU AI Act is trying to hold back the tide. It will potentially slow things down for a couple of years, but ultimately it will not matter. This is a two-horse race anyway. This is China and America. Peter Steinberger, he's Austrian. He is joining OpenAI. He created OpenClaw or Claude bot. 20 days ago, he got a cease and desist from Anthropic, Claude. He became the fastest growing open source project of all time. I think he's got 200,000 stars on Git. On Sunday, 2 days ago, we found out that basically it's been acquired by OpenAI very quickly. The reason I'm mentioning this is Peter is European. The American companies and venture capitalists were squabbling over who got him and who could have the honor of giving him several $100 million to bring him on board. The Europeans were not in that conversation. And even if they were, which company would it be? Mistral? What's Mistral's funding? Mistral have got 1.7 billion. They've got 3 billion in total. Unfortunately, that is pennies in the AI game. It seems like, this is speculation, but it seems like Peter's been given about 200 million. So that would be almost 10% of Mistral's entire fund for one dude. It's just not going to happen. I'm curious how academic article refereeing will change. Yeah, it's going to have to. So already a huge number of academic papers are being put in that are written with AI, obviously with AI, which means that a lot more have been written with AI, but they've been edited or they've been done well. So this means the number of academic papers can go through the roof because we can potentially turn out master's or even PhD quality papers very fast now. So this brings into question the whole endeavor to a certain extent, but in the short term, refereeing is going to be very difficult. They're also seeing this in journal submissions. So journal submissions for academic journals is going up and up and up due to artificial intelligence. But the process of refereeing, the process of reviewing submissions for both PhDs and for journals is still manual. It's still very slow. So we'll probably need to bring AI in on those processes. But then we get to a point where you have AI submitting, AI's writing and submitting, AI's reviewing and verifying. It gets to a point where it's, oh, what are we doing here? What's the point of this system? Why are we submitting and reviewing? Can we just turn our AIs onto knowledge creation as a whole? Can we remove these relatively archaic processes from it? Things that have been around for hundreds of years, do we need to go through that process, or can we just turn this over to the AIs entirely? That would take a bit longer. I think those kind of discussions will be had across the board. As soon as we get AIs talking to AIs, there becomes a question of what are we, the human, doing? We're starting to see this in programming, where increasingly we have agents that can review the code of the other agents and provide feedback and correct and oversee projects. We're seeing the AIs move into orchestration. Inefficient to have a human checking on everything because they become a block. Earlier, a couple of years ago, they were needed because the quality of the output was so poor, it required a human to check on it. That is increasingly not required. It's still required, but increasingly less and less and less. What's the best service you can give to local business owners by AI? There's no one. Okay, if you just try to sell AI to businesses, you're doing them a disservice. I see this with people selling automations to businesses. It's a disservice. You need to talk to the business owner and find out what they actually need. So you start with finding out what tasks are repetitive, which tasks take up a lot of time, they don't enjoy doing, are algorithmic. So it's going to be boring stuff like bookkeeping. I'm only mentioning that because I need to submit a whole bunch of bookkeeping stuff. But things that have to get done, they don't necessarily want to do. Start there. But you need to go and have a conversation with business owners in your particular industry, because the answer to what's the best AI for them depends on what they need. Start with their problems and build solutions using AI. Talk to people. Once you've done that a few times, let's say you're working with local restaurants, you find that one of the problems they have is they can't always answer the phone, so they miss bookings. You help them build a voice agent which can answer the phone, put in a booking, send confirmation. Once you've done that with a handful of businesses, then you can go out to other businesses and say, hey, this is what I do. I build voice agents. I've got some case studies. This has worked really well for other businesses in your area. Would you like to chat? But you only productize, you only settle on that distinct solution once you've gone and solved problems for people. So the answer to what's the best service you can give to a local business owner using AI is go and talk to them, find out what they actually need, and that's going to be the best service. OpenAI has stupid money to throw at good people to help them survive. OpenAI doesn't have that much money. OpenAI doesn't have any of their own money. OpenAI is very good at getting money. Sam goes hat in hand every few months to the investors saying, hey, please sir, I just need another 50 billion. They don't make much money yet. And that's why they're adding adverts. That's why potentially they bought OpenClaw so they can create an agent and charge us for that. I'm sure that's going to be the game plan. They're saying we're keeping it open source. They have not said they will create a proprietary closed source as well. They've just said, oh, we'll keep the current project open source. Come on. They're very good at spending money. It's not their money, though. I don't think it was about money. Peter Steinberger and his project OpenClaw was acqui-hired by OpenAI for an undisclosed amount. He's done very well. Congratulations to Peter. However, he talks about the reason he did it is for his mum, which is really cute. When I started exploring AI, my goal was to have fun and inspire people. And here we are, the lobster has taken over the world. My next mission is to build an agent that even my mum can use. They'll need a broader change, more thought on how to do it safely, and access to the latest models and research. So by doing it with a frontier lab, that becomes possible because then there's a team to make sure it's safe, secure, and access to the latest models. So that's in part why Peter's done this, so he can expand it out. He doesn't come across as a money motivated person, and I'm sure he could have made more money by going to Meta. Mark Zuckerberg was chasing him. Mark Zuckerberg has hired a bunch of people over the last year, 2025, including one guy for 250 million. So $250 million, which is amounts of money. Zuckerberg was offering a lot of money, but I think Peter is more interested in building as well. Plus, he's probably made a couple $100 million. So money-wise, fine. But he does not come across as a particularly money-orientated person. OpenAI is desperate. Environmental impact no longer considerations, energy consuming servers. Yes, 100%. Energy, electricity is definitely an issue. Water is not. Water is a really weird one. I'm glad people aren't talking about it as much because that was a bit of a red herring. Water usage isn't that big a deal, but electricity usage is. So a massive deal. The amount of electricity being used by all data centers around the world is still like a couple of percent of the total. I think a lot of heat has been pointed at AI for good reason, but we are not looking at other industries that are using phenomenal amounts of electricity and phenomenal amounts of water. So if you're going to attack AI for using water, for example, you have to look at the meat industry. You have to look at fast fashion, textiles. Yes, I know we need to wear clothes, but do we need to buy clothes every week from Temu? No. And we need to look at things like golf courses. My God, the amount of water they use, especially when you build a golf course in Dubai. However, people aren't looking at those because they have an axe to grind with artificial intelligence, and it's a nice, easy argument to make. But we have to look at the other uses of electricity. We have to look at the other uses of water. And they, at the moment, far outweigh the use in data centers and in artificial intelligence. So these arguments always feel a bit bad to me when somebody's like, oh, it's using so much electricity. Look at all the other bloody industries then, because IT as a whole is using about 3%. So it is a problem, and it's a growing problem, but it's not as large a problem as people think compared to the rest of the usage, the rest of the world, basically. The AI companies themselves are looking into investing into renewables and into nuclear. So actually building nuclear power stations in order to power their data centers. So what we'll probably see is an increase in the amount of energy generation. And because of regulation, at least in the US and Europe, it's going to be clean and renewable. In China is, I think they're on track to having fully, let me check this, fully renewable energy in not very long. I'll have to look into this in more detail. Oh, I'm not going to use AI for this, but they are investing massively into renewables. They put up a solar panel grid the size of Bristol recently. Just solar panels, a whole city worth of it. So I think this is a problem. Electricity is a massive problem, but it's one that can be solved. It's a bit of a red herring because we need to look at the other industries on Earth as well, not just AI. OpenAI has bled large number of subs as people have blocked to Claude and Gemini. So interestingly, their sub rates are still going up. However, so are Gemini's. Gemini in particular. Claude's weird. No one actually uses Claude. The number of people who know what Claude is and use Claude is minuscule. Claude has a much larger visibility in our particular little area. The people who think about AI, the people who talk about AI. Outside though, no one has a clue what it is. So remember that Super Bowl advert that Claude put out teasing OpenAI for putting out adverts? It was the third most hated Super Bowl advert in the last 5 years, according to a survey, because people thought it was weird and didn't know what it was. That's because they don't know what Claude is, and they don't know that OpenAI are adding adverts into ChatGPT. So the whole thing for them was just like, wait, what? It totally missed the mark because the public don't use Claude. The public has no idea what Claude is, unfortunately. So yeah, they're doing really well in the kind of coding community, in the people who are using AI at the frontier, but outside of that, it's tiny. Whereas ChatGPT, it was at 900 million users about a month ago, and it's expected to hit 1 billion users very shortly if it hasn't already. It's going up and up and up. What do you think the best app is for everything AI? Richard. Hey, Richard. How you doing? Kyle just signed up to your site. Thanks. UK unemployment news this morning. We should probably talk about this. I'd rather people get a kick up the backside now than wait a couple of years and then be like, oh no, this AI thing is a big deal. Whoops. Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you too. I love Claude Code. Claude Code is fantastic. Claude Code is for coding, but you can use it for other projects as well. Unfortunately, they stuck the word code in it, which makes people think that it's very technical, but I use it for pretty much everything. So for content creation, distribution, personal organization. So it's become my operating system. They've created something called Claude Cowork, which is like a less techie version, which I highly recommend. It's on Windows. I think that's relatively new. So it's on Windows. You do need a paid plan. And with Claude Code in particular, you need the $100 a month plan. The $20 a month plan will allow you to put in a couple of queries and then it'd be like, that's your lot for today, which if you're trying to use in your business or for your work, it just won't cut it. So you're going to need $100 a month. I'm on the $200 a month plan, probably overkill for most people. But if it becomes the root of your business, then it's a relatively small expense. The problem with that is that increasingly there will be a split between people who can afford that for their business, $200 a month, and people for whom that just is impossible. That is not feasible. So we're going to have this bifurcation in who can afford intelligence. So for me, because it's part of a business I'm running, that 200 is cheap. That is much cheaper than hiring somebody. However, if you're using it on a personal basis and you just want to use it for some projects, $200 a month is a lot of money, a huge amount of money. It's at $2,500 a year. That's a lot of money. So we will have this split. And unfortunately, that might get wider. This is why I'm in favor of OpenAI adding adverts. The reason they're using adverts and they're putting them into the free and the Go plan is to subsidize the cost of running everything. They have 1 billion users. They need to be able to cover the server costs to provide intelligence to people for free. That's basically the deal. In the same way that you use Google for free, you use Facebook for free, that allows Facebook and Google to advertise to you. That's the unwritten contract that we have with them. Same with ChatGPT. People are going to be really pissed about it because it's the first time we've had adverts in our artificial intelligence. So they have to push through that resistance, and it's going to be rough for them, really rough. But I get it. That's the only way they can keep the cost down, and they don't have to charge $200 a month in the same way that Anthropic teased them, OpenAI, about it. And Sam Altman said, okay, that's fine, but we have a different problem to you. We have 1 billion users. You have less than 100 million users. You don't have the problem that we have because we are very successful and you are not as successful. And very true. So I'm in favor of them adding adverts into ChatGPT because it allows them to provide free intelligence to the world. And no one else is doing that. AI Rogue says, if it's free, you are the product. Remember that. Whenever you're using something for free, you are not the customer. Unless you are paying, you're not the customer. So you have to think, who is paying? And with Google, it's people running adverts. With Facebook and Instagram, it's people running adverts. They're the customer. So all of these platforms, what they do is they aggregate attention, whether it is Google, bringing people to search results, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, having people scroll, whether it's TikTok, they aggregate attention, they aggregate eyeballs, and then they sell them to the highest bidder using an auction system. So the customer is the advertiser. You, as the person who's on TikTok or YouTube right now watching this, you are the product that is sold to the advertisers. It's an upsetting thing to realize, but I think it's quite important to understand that. And that's exactly what OpenAI are going to be doing with their adverts. If you are not paying for OpenAI, if you're not paying them $20 a month, fine, you are not a customer, you are product that we're going to sell to the advertisers. It doesn't feel good, but that's the contract that we enter into when we use these services, basically. They've said that the ads will not affect the answers, so the ads will be shown independently. That does not stop them from checking who clicks what and using that to optimize the adverts. Will they send it back into training for the LLM? I'm not sure how valuable that data is. I think they'll use it to train their ad platform for optimization. I don't necessarily think they'll use it to train the base foundation level model, because I can't really see the value of that. But they're very smart. They're smarter than me, so they'll probably work something out. I'm sure that is something that they will look into. If there's a benefit for doing so for them, then yeah, of course they will do that. I'm gonna finish up. Hopefully this was useful. I'm sorry if it's a bit scary and you have to go to work and now you're feeling a little bit wobbly about that. I'm hoping though that's a good kick up the backside. There's a very useful concept, 3 Sleepless Nights. I highly recommend the book by Ethan Mollick, Co-Intelligence. Let me pull it up. There we go. So Co-Intelligence, great book. One of the only books on AI that I actually recommend, because they normally go out of date so quickly. But Co-Intelligence is more about how to think about AI and what this means as a technology. But he talks about how if you are paying attention, if you actually think through the consequences of artificial intelligence, you will have 3 sleepless nights. You might come out of those 3 sleepless nights thinking, wow, AI is fantastic, I'm really excited for this. Or you might come out thinking, oh my God, we're all going to die. But either way, you have to go through this process of thinking, oh, wow, okay, this is going to change everything. So he says AI will give you 3 sleepless nights, 1 for excitement, 1 for fear, and 1 for trying to figure out what to do. And if you don't have those 3 sleepless nights, it suggests that you're not thinking about it enough, that you haven't really grasped and grappled with the implications of what the hell is going on. So it's an entirely natural response, if you are a thinking person, to see this technology and be like, oh shit, oh no, absolutely fine. This article here is saying most people, they sleep like babies. Most people have not realized what this means. And at least by watching this, at least by us looking at things like this UK unemployment and the fact that AI is not going away, it doesn't matter what the economic cycles are, the technology is in place. At least we're thinking about this and we can proactively try to do something about it instead of sticking our heads in the sand and hoping for the best, which is what most people are doing, and it's not going to work. So if I have caused you distress, if I have upset you, if you go away from this thinking, God damn it, it pissed me off and I'm going to feel miserable all day, I apologize for that. But I hope off the back of that, there is the realization like, oh yeah, I need to do something about this. I need to think about what I'm going to do in the future and what AI means for me. That was the purpose for doing it. Thank you so much, everybody, and happy Chinese New Year for everyone. I'm going to go and eat some dumplings. I need to go and buy some dumplings, but I'm lazy. I will see you guys. Thanks so much.